Look, let's talk to Minister of State for Veterans Affairs, Johnny Mercer, who joins us now. It's good to see you this morning, and I want to talk to you about veterans and what have you in just a moment, but just because Charlie Rowley here was mentioning it, do you think there is still everything to play for in terms of the number of undecideds in the UK at the moment?
Oh, look, Stephen, I mean, I can read the polls, right? But I have to say to you, I'm not seeing that reflected on the doorstep. So I'm not saying they're wrong, and I'm not saying that, that we're fighting hard and it's a struggle and the campaign's been up and down. But I'm not finding that massive poll lead. And let me just put that back in. I think, there's votes to be won and there's a fight to be had, and I'm enjoying getting out on the doorstep and doing just that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting I mean, you've been outspoken and you've been very defensive, even after the D-Day fiasco. Do you think there really is a chance that the Tories could just make it, or are you simply trying to stand up for what you believe in so much, which is probably your constituency, but also your job as Veterans Minister?
Look, I think, I'm not trying to put a positive spin on things. I think after D-Day, it's clear. All I said after that was that the Prime Minister made a mistake, and he recognises that, but it's got to be borne in the wider context of what he's actually done, which is fundamentally change. He's allowed me to go out and fundamentally change what it feels like to be a veteran in the UK. And the last two Prime Ministers sacked me as I tried to do that. So, look, the reality is that when it comes to policy and changing people's lives, this argument around tax at the moment, Starmer on TV last night, capital gains tax is going to change people's lives around here, right? People can't afford to pay this, and they're sort of slinking their way through this election, the Labour Party, without saying anything about what they're going to do on taxes. They are clearly going to raise your taxes, like perpetrating a bit of a fraud on the British people by not answering the question when it's put to them by journalists. Keep saying we're not going to raise income tax and the other two, whatever they are, right? But everything else is going to get taxed, and you know that, I know that, everybody in the country knows that, and I think as you go into that election and you really zero in on that choice at a general election, do you want to pay more in tax, or do you want to vote for a party that has tax reduction in its DNA to try and improve public services and fight these challenges around migration and the economy that we know are ongoing? Or are you going to write a blank cheque to a massive majority for Keir Starmer to have unchecked power, dealing with yet again a guy who believes in absolutely nothing at all and will say anything to gain power? So I think we've got a job to do as politicians and campaigners to get people to really sharpen their minds as to what that choice is at the election. And that's what I'm focused on doing every day here in Plymouth.
I mean, the point is, though, when you look at people like Sir John Curtis, who's, an eminent professor of these matters and independent, and you look at the Institute for Fiscal Studies, which is independent, and they're all saying taxes will rise, whoever's in power. I mean, the IFS says that neither of the two big parties have actually addressed the problems financially that we're in.
Yeah, so they're talking about a percentage of GDP, which I understand. The truth is, for the lowest earners now in Plymouth, right, they're paying less tax than they have done before. You can't get through a pandemic, Stephen, where you spend £400 billion and not expect to have to pay that out of taxes at some point. Some of the support that this Prime Minister did when he was doing furlough during the pandemic and stuff is unprecedented, and everyone sort of warmed to it at the time. It's kind of for the birds that we're never going to have to pay that back or deal with it in a mature manner. What you have seen over the last 3 to 6 months is reductions in, for example, national insurance. That's £900 in working people's pockets. And you've got another commitment in the manifesto. You're seeing a clear trajectory of downward taxes on working people, whereas on the other side of the coin, you've got a clear dodging of the question of when it comes to taxes, because as sure as night follows day, as sure as the sun comes up in the morning, Labour get in and they will raise your taxes, right? right? And you will pay more in tax. And I've knocked on hundreds of doors across Plymouth, and I'm yet to find someone who wants to pay more tax or can afford to pay more tax. So, that is the clear choice at this election. I could pretend it's about veterans and all these other broad policies, ideas that we're talking about. Okay, fundamentally it's about tax, and whether or not you think we should pay more in tax with our tax burden where it is at the moment, or actually if you're going to vote for a party that it's in their DNA to bring down taxes. That is your choice. Starmer is going to raise your taxes. You've seen that even on TV last night about capital gains tax. It's clear he's going to raise taxes. The Conservatives are going to continue to try and fight to bring these down for working people. That is your choice as you go into that ballot box, and we've got to sharpen people's minds to what that choice is.
What of the job of which you're clearly so proud, standing up for veterans and trying to improve their lot? What are your fears for them should the Tories lose this election?
Look, I think if you just look in black and white terms, right, at the manifestos this week, on Tuesday you've got the Conservative manifesto comes out. There's some really detailed policies in there that affect veterans' lives. For example, the Armed Forces Covenant, the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme and the War Pension Scheme being counted when they're working out your benefits, removing that penalty, right, so people receive more of the money they're entitled to. You look at the Labour Party commitment to veterans, 2 lines and 136 pages. Either the veteran candidates in the Labour Party are just not saying anything about veterans, or they're just so fixated on their own kind of self-promotion in the Labour Party that they can't be bothered to actually activate and stand up for veterans in the Labour Party. There is nothing in there for veterans if the Labour Party get elected. So, yes, I'm hugely concerned about it because we've made real progress and changed what it means to be a veteran in the United Kingdom. You've got one party with detailed policies on what that means going forward. I want every veteran who uses the state in any way in this country to be asked if they're a veteran and go into clear, defined treatment pathways for mental health, physical health, whatever it may be. You've got nothing from the Labour Party. And these are not, veterans are not my hobby horse. They're not Johnny Mercer's responsibility exclusively. There's 2.27 million of them in this country. It's no good going out and looking sombre on Remembrance Day if you can't be bothered to do any critical thinking around policy that affects veterans' lives, which is what's happened in the Labour Party in this manifesto. So I'm afraid I am worried about it. I think veterans should be very worried about it. If you're a veteran, I have no idea how you go out at this election and campaign for a Labour Party that is committed and, Keir Starmer's actually said this, to restarting those prosecutions of Northern Ireland veterans who served in Northern Ireland. How do you, as a veteran, go and look them in the eye and go, do you know what, I think we should restart this process if you're in the 80s and in your 80s and 90s, take you out to Northern Ireland, get you in a police station, answer questions about something you've been investigated on for many times already, and then put you in court. It is not a fair way to treat our veterans. I thought it was the pinnacle of how badly we got it wrong, and the Labour Party is going to restart it. How, if you're a veteran, you go and vote for them is beyond me.
OK. Johnny Mercer, appreciate your time. Good to see you. And enjoy the nice weather, because very few of us have got it. Obviously, Johnny Mercer there mentioned the fact he was campaigning in his constituency, which is Plymouth Moor View. The candidates standing there, Sean Hooper for Reform UK, Sarah Martin for the Lib Dems, Johnny Mercer for the Conservative and Unionist Party, Georgia Nelson for the Green Party, and Fred Thomas for the Labour Party.